You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions. Your host tonight is the author of the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa, the pan-African nationalist, Oni. Oni, what are we discussing tonight?
Peace, Ankobia. Today's discussion you're not going to like. Alright? You're not going to like this discussion because we're going to talk about a serious subject. And unfortunately, you're too used to not talking about serious subjects. Someone the other day came to me and told me about some celebrity passing away or something. That's what you're used to. Someone told me about, I saw some conversation about colorism and it went back into celebrities. That's what you're used to talking to. That's considered deep conversation. That's considered must speak about radio, TV, gossip, whatever. That's what you consider important. This is not it. Okay? We're going to have a conversation that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Okay? You're not going to hear it anywhere else. And that's because this is a subject matter that's of the utmost importance. And unfortunately, you belong to a people who don't like to talk about things that are important. Alright? And they don't like to talk about the solution to the problems that we face as a people. But, you know what? I don't care. I don't care. We're going to discuss what people would call geopolitics, right? We belong to a people, let's say it this way. The black man does not know how to spell the word geopolitics. All right? The black man does not know how to spell the word geopolitics. And it's not really important that, you get the technical definition for it. It's not. We're going to have a geopolitical discussion though, right? First and foremost, gotta thank this sister Funmi, right? She went to the blog site, AfricanBloodSiblings.wordpress.com. She looked through the newsletter, saw articles that she might be interested in, read those articles. She dropped some comments, and those are the things that revitalize authors. Authors and speakers. Those are the things that at least I appreciate. So I want you all to go to this newsletter, read the articles, tell me what you find interesting, because frankly, I wrote a lot of these things and I can't say that I memorized all of them. When you write 400 plus articles, you can't necessarily, you don't necessarily pull off of them off the top of your head, rapidly. Right? So I read this one over and I'm like, dang, who wrote this? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, dang, who wrote this? Let me get his book. And of course, I'm thinking that way. But that's not to say that you are. Because I see the book sales. I see the book sales. I say, hey, you know what? I look at these articles and I say, look, I got to share this on my social media. But I don't see these articles being shared on my social media besides from me. You understand? This is different between you and me. Now you might say, well, only that's because you're the one who wrote it. Well, if that's how you feel, you understand? If that's how you feel, only you do all the work. Only do all the work. That's what you want. That's what you want to say. You say, hey, look, only really it benefits you. If it only benefited me, why would I put it online? Why would I put it out there? The article that Funmi, and I apologize if I butchered your name, but The article that she commented on was called "The Only Superpower Black People Should Aspire to Have," right? And of course, you know, it deals with this question of superpowers and superheroes and all that. You know, basically black folk like to talk about nonsense. You know, when I was a kid, that's what we talked about, nonsense. You know, what kind of superpower would you want? You know, who's the best superhero? You know, who could win in a fight? All that stupid stuff. And I told you about that already, right? But the conclusion of this article was that if you're talking about superpowers, something that can help, you know, people save themselves, right? You're talking about geopolitical nations. And the reality that black folk don't have any superpowers. As to say that America's a superpower, Russia's a superpower, China's finna be a superpower, you know, regionally, India's a superpower. Regionally, let's say let's not even go down the list really. But the point being that there's such a thing as power, you know, powerful nations. Particularly regionally powerful nations, like let's say Israel to its surrounding, right? Africa, first off, doesn't even have a superpower. Second of all, doesn't even have a regional superpower. Okay, and that's a shame. And maybe the closest thing to a regional superpower, which isn't a regional superpower, but the closest thing would be Nigeria. And the thing is this though, if you look at Nigeria, right? You should be ashamed of yourself as a black person. Wherever you are in this world, if you look at Nigeria, you should be ashamed of yourself, because just by sheer numbers alone, Nigeria should be a superpower. You understand what I'm telling you? Nigeria should be a superpower just by numbers alone. The largest, let's say it this way. Nigeria has 174 million people. 174 million. Roughly, that's half the population of the United States. Okay? So the United States is, quote unquote, the number, you know, vying for the number one superpower position. Right? United States, Russia is maybe number 2. Right? China coming up. You know, Britain, France, those are strong nations too. Germany's strong. And that's something to remember, that these are strong nations. Now, the African nations are weak nations, unfortunately. Okay? And some people will cry about how, well, we got poor leaders and we got terrible leaders and we got this and that. Don't worry about that. We have weak nations. And that should make you cry. Okay, that should make you cry. And when I go more into depth about this, right? When I go into more depth about this, you'll see why. But in essence, Nigeria has 174 million people, half the population of the United States, right? Half, and it's all black people, more or less, right? All black people. Now, black people are the smartest, the strongest, the most beautiful, you know? And you got so many black people. And it's not a superpower. It's not a regional power. You know, it's on par with Niger. It's on par with Ghana. You understand? It's on par with Burkina Faso. It's not necessarily producing the leaders of Africa. So many people. Let me throw another number at you guys. Let me throw another number. Lagos has, alright, so the largest city in the United States is New York City. Right? That's where I'm at. 8.5 million people. New York City, 8.5 million people. It's known, well, as far as I understand, it's what, at least what America says, it's known around the world. Right? It's, you know, it's in songs, it's in you know, stories. I think I saw a video earlier today of a woman, of a little girl in Africa who's singing you know, a New York anthem. You know, the one by Alicia Keys and Jay-Z, if I recall correctly. But she's singing that song in the middle of Africa, you know? And it's like, okay, sure, whatever. You know, 8.5 million people, you know, largest city in America, okay. You know? Guess what? Lagos. Now some of you saying, where's Lagos? You know, by context, I'll think it's in Nigeria, sure. Lagos has 8 million people. 8 million people. New York City, 8.5 million. Lagos, 8 million. Now, I don't know what the second largest, I should have looked it up, what the second largest city in America is, right? But essentially, Lagos, let's just say that the second largest city doesn't have 8 million people. I don't know. Who cares, right? Lagos is larger than almost, let's say, 99% of cities in America. 99%. All right? 8 million black Africans in Lagos City. But you don't even know what they do. You don't know what they produce. You don't know what the city. You don't know about them. You don't see no songs about it. You know you ain't singing no songs about it. You can't find it on a map. You know, you don't even know what language they speak. You know, and ironically, you know, you see what I'm saying? More numbers, right? Nigerian army. Apparently the Nigerian armed forces for the whole state. Now remember, the state is 174 million people, right? The nation is 174 million people, right? For the whole nation, there is 200,000 soldiers in the armed forces. You know, at least according to, I mean, it was hard to look it up, but it looks like that's a number, 200,000, right? And the budget is, let's say, $2 billion in American dollars, right? It's, you know, up there in, you know, in Nigerian currency, right? The Naira, right? But it's just 2 billion USD. But 200,000 soldiers. 200,000. Just think about that. Now for reference, you know, and of course you don't want to always compare it. You don't always want to compare it to, you know, America, right? Although you are supposed to compare it to America, but we're gonna just, you know, we're just gonna agree to disagree there, right? But America has 1.2 million soldiers, right? So 1 million more soldiers, right? And but here's the important part too: a military budget of $610 billion. So that's $608 billion more. You understand? USD. Remember, United States is only twice the population of Nigeria, but it has 6 times the size of its armed force. Right, its armed force is 6 times bigger, and its budget is, you know, I shouldn't even divide. Let's say 305 times bigger. Okay. Now the Nigerian police is 371,800. Right, and they're looking to increase that. And I didn't even bother to look up the United States police force size, but it's sizable too, right? The Nigerian budget, state budget, is around $27 billion USD. Okay, $27 billion, which isn't actually a lot of money, right? But those are the things that I want you to grasp, because here's where we talk about geopolitics. And this is as Ankobia. You know, the subject matter is saying to us, the subject matter is, these are conditions that are ripe for reformation, to say the least. You know, a lot of times what we want to do is we want to now you got to have some strategy here, right? You want to fight your way. You want to fight. Let's say a lot of us want to fight, you know, old Whitey, fight the United States right off the bat. Just go, hey, U.S., let's fight. And then a lot of us feel hopeless. We're like, how can we fight the United States, right? Nigeria, again, has half the population of the United States. The United States military force isn't even that big, right? 174 million compared to 1.2 million. This is the all the armed forces of the United States. Army, Marines, Navy, so on and so forth, Air Force, right? All that 1.2 million, right? If we were to go about with governing, like real government of Nigeria or even Lagos with 8 million people, go about with real governance or really exploring the idea of pan-African nationalism, really exploring this idea of creating leaders and a whole other generation of African people, and really understanding that Nigeria has a budget that if you're willing to, let's say, serve our people and serve them without necessarily getting full compensation, like being fully compensated, but being compensated adequately. If you're willing to do that, you can change this world. You understand? If Lagos became a center of pan-Africanism, if we built a school that had, let's say, 10,000 students, right? And understand, you could have 400 staff. But if you had a school that had 10,000 students and catered to all ages or even just high school age, who cares, right? If you had something that catered to building and developing future leaders, future economical, political, cultural, ethical leaders in the community, right? If you had a school that built on Ankobia, and it don't have to be in Lagos, it could be adjacent to Lagos, it could be on the other side, it don't matter where you do it, because the real thing is that you don't want to announce plans anyway. But what I'm saying is, get this in your head, right? If you were to build a school, an academy, right? An academy designed to create math and science geniuses, the best in the world, and they were deep in an African nation, you won. You understand? You won. This white man does not want black people to have a superpower. Okay? He doesn't. And actually, if you actually, like I said, geopolitics, if you study it, I tell you to get the Pro-Black Compendium, right? And you don't listen. You don't listen. You want to hear me tell you a good geopolitical strategy, and that's fine. That's understandable. But I'm trying to give you geopolitical thinking. That's what the Pro-Black Compendium is about. Geopolitical thinking. When you read that book, you can come to a deeper understanding of what you need to do and how you need to do it. You listening? If you don't have the book, if you haven't read the book yet, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing yourself a disservice, and by next week, I want you to have that book in your hand. But before then, let's go back to this. Let's face it, right? You got to look at these numbers I gave you: 400,000 police force, 200,000 army, right? That's larger. That's large, okay? It's not really large, but it's sizable. It's not really sizable, but it's whatever, right? But it's small. Okay? It's big for an individual. Like if I were to go to Nigeria and I said, hey, you know what? I'm looking to start some trouble. 200,000 people against Oni? Yeah. You know, I'm a dead man. Face facts. Let's face facts. But it's small. Every other nation in the world is looking at the size of Africa's military and saying, yeah, I can get away with doing whatever I want there. I can get away with doing whatever I want there. And the trouble is that any old upstart can say the same thing. Because you're not organized. You are not organized. You're not doing enough. And the trouble is that you want to pick a fight with, you know, this white boy, and you can't even pick a fight with Nigeria. Or you can't even pick a fight with a Burkina Faso. You can't pick a fight with an African nation. You want to go up against this white boy right away. Out the gate. And it's funny. It's laughable. Sometimes I see you all on social media, you know, talking about, man, I wish a white boy would. You wish he would do what? You wish he would do what? You wearing stripes. You got a ball and chain on your legs. What do you wish he would do exactly? You bending over every time he say bend over. What do you wish he would do? What more can he do that you think he's not doing to you? He done shoots your kid. He shoots your kids in the streets for target practice. What exactly do you plan on doing to this white boy? You gotta have a geopolitical strategy. Alright? And I'm telling you, a lot of you are not gonna like this. A lot of you are not gonna like this. A lot of people are not gonna like this. And you know, you can share it with your boys, share it with your girls, whatever. They might say, hey, look, man, this Oni guy, you know, I don't like him. I don't like him. He's talking like what he said makes sense. I don't like it though. I don't. A lot of people don't want to be free. They don't want to be free. They want to talk big in chains. Yo, man, I wish Massa would. That's what they say. You know, on the gallows. You know, with their hands in the gallows, talking about, yo, I wish this dude would with me one more time. I wish. Oh man, I tell you, if he with me one more. Alright, one more time. One more time after this. I mean, sure, he better stop. Chained up. And you know, I don't want to make a mockery of you know, our ancestors, but I'm willing to make a mockery of our contemporaries. Y'all are being silly. You're not building for a future, and you're not thinking of future. You're not thinking of a futuristic plan. Like I said, black man can't spell the word geopolitics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you some geopolitical strategies from, let's say, two of the superpowers. And when I do that, I'm going to, like you're going to see how embarrassing it is. Just the fact that they have it out in the open like this. But we're going to hit you with a break right now.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Greetings, family. This is Koku, host of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. In case you didn't know, we have an online book club called the Bitter Medicine Book Club. Every month, we will select a book to inspire the Bitter Medicine podcast listening audience to read along together. At the end of the month, we will have a call-in show and book discussion. This is a great, dynamic way for readers to not only enjoy a book, but also have others to bounce ideas off of. They say if you want to keep anything away from black people, put it in a book. Don't allow this to be true. Head over to bittermedicineblogs.com and subscribe to our newsletter for important updates. Do that today. Join our reading collective today and empower yourselves, your family, and your community. Peace and blessings. You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
The first one, so we're back, and what we're going to talk about is the this book. Now, ironically, both of these books were written in 1997, right? And this white boy, he decided to put summaries and synopses of these two books that are geopolitical books for Russia and the United States, respectively. Okay? So, this white boy is putting this stuff out in the open. Okay? They're putting this stuff out in the open because they say, look here, black man ain't no threat. You don't got to keep no secrets from this black man. You know, you don't. And even if this black man can't think ideologically soundly, you know, because see, this white boy don't know that there are some black people who read the Pro-Black Compendium. He don't know that. So, because actually he knows that there's a lot of you who didn't. He sees the sales too. He's like, okay, all right, maybe okay, somebody bought it. Okay, whatever. That's all he sees. He's like, okay, it's not really popping among black folks, so I'm good. I'm still good. You know? But that's on you. You understand? That's on you. You know, you have to get like what would make you an actual threat is ideology or thinking clearly. A lot of our people don't think clearly. You know, I saw this brother actually online talk about, you know what, I'm not even going to go into this one brother, but basically a lot of our people talk about, you know, person of color or alliances and all that. And the reality is that a lot of our people don't understand war deeply enough to talk about military strategy. You know, because the idea of having an alliance or even the idea of not having an alliance, both of them are wrong. Both of them are wrong. You understand? This is a deep question. And superficial answers are always wrong. Not by merit of being superficial. No, because it's wrong. But I don't even want to go in depth about that. I don't even want to go into it right now. It's a really simple answer, but you got to understand, you got to have a military mind. And again, you know, I tell you, read the book. Read the Pro-Black Compendium, and you don't just read it to, you know, just because that's the book to read. And it is. But also you read it to say, you know, you buy it and read it to say, hey, look, Oni, I support you. You know, when I get this message from Funmi, I was like, yo, I got to do more. You know? Matter of fact, I got a message on YouTube by another sister. And that really pushed me too. You know? And I mean, of course I appreciate the comments I get from brothers too. But there you go. Africana like Linda. You know, she's there, you know, She's a young sister. She's talking about she likes to, she wants to read and study the books. That's what I want to hear. And that makes me want to do this more. Because I know y'all noticed I didn't go 1 week. And it was like, well, it's hard to think of stuff, especially if, folk ain't even engaging you. Folk ain't engaging you, but, how am I supposed to know whether this is being appreciated or not? I look at the book sales, the book sales don't even move. So I'm just like, maybe no one's interested. And yeah, y'all notice I'm not even editing out these flubs or whatever. But let's go into this conversation right here on Russian geopolitics. So they wrote a book called Foundations of Geopolitics in 1997, right? And I could say allegedly, because we don't know, right? I wouldn't know. But here's what they say on the United States. Now bear in mind that geopolitics means that they have a policy for a number of nations, in a sense, right? They have a certain policy according to a number of like different nations that they're interacting with. Now you can see how that's different from what we do. Okay, but so they have a policy for Ukraine, they have a policy for Poland, they have a policy for Germany, they have a policy for, you know what I'm saying? But what's important is the policy for the United States, right? And well, I mean, all of it's important, right? But what I'm going to read to you is the policy they have for the United States. So it says, Russia should use its special services within the borders of the United States to fuel instability and separatism, for instance, provoke Afro-American racists. So Russia should introduce geopolitical disorder into internal American activity, encouraging all kinds of separatism and ethnic, social, and racial conflicts, actively supporting all dissident movements, extremist, racist, and sectarian groups, thus destabilizing internal political processes in the U.S. It would also make sense simultaneously to support isolationist tendencies in American politics. So, again, this is called the Foundations of Geopolitics. It's on Wikipedia. Okay? It's in plain sight. White folk, when they were discussing the Blacktivists, the Russian trolls, the Russian financed activists on social media, who was like a really good propagandist, who got like millions of followers and was all talking this, that, so forth, right? This is what white people brought up. They were like, hey, look, this is actually consistent with Russia's geopolitical strategy. That is to, take people like basically mimic people like me, right? But specifically to cause like political tension, so it's like, man, Hillary Clinton, man, you know how she did with them Haitians, don't forget Hillary Clinton, or Trump's just a racist, I don't even want to vote, blah 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 blah, but their whole intent is to, make America have more instability. You get what I'm saying? It's quote unquote the divide and conquer, or even just the divide and weaken strategy. You see what I'm saying? Makes it so that black folk, they might say black people shouldn't even join the army, or even on the other side, they be like, white people shouldn't join the army. Why would we want to go around with these niggers? Like they're fanning both sides. They're playing, groups in America, particularly, and they're doing it through ethnic, social, and racial conflicts. Just saying, hey, like they're fueling these, quote unquote alt-right people, but they're fueling the black nationalists. They're fueling, the Latino, whatever they're doing. Just giving that antagonism and animosity just to trouble the state. You know what I'm saying? That's you can't seem to point it to my head, but that's a geopolitical strategy. You get what I'm saying? Now I could tell you about the other ones that they have for Ukraine and Bulgaria and Germany or whatever, and unfortunately, a lot of it, might not be, clearly understood, but on the other hand, but on the one hand, I do want you to read it, so that's why I don't want to read it to you. But let's say right here, let's say the overall goal in Europe is the maximum task of the future is the Finlandization of all of Europe. So let's say for France, they say France should be encouraged to form a Franco-German bloc with Germany, because both countries have a firm anti-Atlanticist tradition. The United Kingdom should be cut off from Europe. And of course, you see how that's consistent with the Brexit. Estonia should be giving to Germany's sphere of influence. You get what I'm saying? So they have these strategies for different nations in Europe, and I just read the American one because it has a little bit of relevance to us. Interestingly, this book, at least the description that they gave on Wikipedia, doesn't mention Africa at all. Now it probably does mention Africa deeper in the book, but maybe white boy said, you know what? Let's not even give these black folk any interest. They're not gonna pick up the book anyway, right? They're not gonna pick up this book anyway. So, why should we do their work for them? Why should we do their work for them? But really, it's not too important what their strategy is for Africa, as much as what's your strategy for Africa. And unfortunately, we already know what that is. And I could summarize it this way. Yeah, that was the strategy. Now let's go to the American book. So the American book, also in 1997, was called The Grand Chessboard, and this is actually pretty interesting. So this was just a summary of what the author, was talking about. And it says, regarding the land, so the book regards the landmass of Eurasia as the center of global power. Remember that, right? And so the author sets out to formulate a Eurasian geostrategy for the United States. In particular, it is imperative, the author writes, it is imperative that no Eurasian challenger should emerge capable of dominating Eurasia and thus also of challenging America's global preeminence. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand what that means? The geopolitical strategy outlined for America is that there should be no Eurasian challenger should emerge capable of dominating Eurasia, right? So they don't want Russia taking over Eurasia. They don't want Germany taking over Eurasia. They don't want France, England, so on and so forth. They want the situation in Eurasia to be, essentially the same as Russia, Finlandization, right? But, and of course, somebody's going to scratch their head. What's Finlandization mean? Look it up. Just look it up. Just look, or even don't even try to understand it. Just say it's just what it is right now. They don't want a superpower, a superpower, or a hyperpower in the middle of Europe. Okay, they don't want that, right? And because that would challenge America's global dominance. You see what I'm saying? America's worried about its global dominance over other white people. Okay? Cause, and this is something you have to understand. This is why I can't mess with, these Naylor Fuller or these Naylor Fuller fools, right? Because you keep talking about white supremacy, right? You don't understand that it's nationalism. You don't understand that it's geopolitics. That if this white boy understands that Eurasia is the center of global power, which is what which is the whole quote unquote white supremacy thing, right? Kind of. But he's not looking at them as his allies. He said, I want to keep them weak so that I can be strong as the United Snakes. That I'm looking for United Snakes global preeminence. You understand that? And he has his own geopolitical strategy. So does Russia. And the thing with this white supremacy narrative where you're like, oh, these white supremacists, this is what they're doing, white supremacy, it has no depth to it. Zero depth. I was thinking about it earlier. I said, look, you know something about black folk, especially black folk in America? We are the simplest. We have the simplest political goals. The simplest. You know, the Arab is I mean, all these other groups, let's face facts as well as fancies, all of them particularly have an interest in coming to America, right? And going to the hood and exploiting black people. That's that's what the Latino does. That's what the Arab does. That's what the Chinese do. They all say, welcome us to open your borders to us, America, so that we can come to your hoods and exploit black people, right? But you know what black people's political goals are? Keep the Republican out of office. Keep the racist out of office. That's it. That's it. You don't want to have, economic, the economic ability to exploit other groups or even to facilitate for or even to give to your own community. You don't want that. All you want to do is keep the racist out. And that's all these white folk campaign on. Yo, Trump's a racist. Oh, this person's a racist. Oh, I'm not a racist. I got a black wife. That's it. And that's all you want. And again, and that's the trouble with this whole white supremacy narrative. This whole, the white supremacist narrative. It's nearly full of stuff. It's like, it's simple. It doesn't make any, it's not deep. It doesn't go to the heart of the problem. The heart of the problem being that these other people have geopolitical strategies and you don't. Now get this. Eurasia is a center of global power, according to this author at least, right? Or that's what you call white supremacy, yada yada. And America's not trying to make any of these, is trying to keep all of these nations weak, right? So it has to stay ahead of all of these nations. Now, Russia has its own geopolitical strategy, right? It's like, let me weaken up United States. Maybe put some separatists, blah, 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 this, blah, blah, blah. That's its own geopolitical strategy. But it also has a geopolitical strategy for France. It's like, hey, France and Germany should get stronger. Why? Because France and Germany get stronger, then that whole issue of the United States' huge dominance, that's another destabilizing system, if you will. Because they're gonna let me see what they do with Germany. Matter of fact, just so I could get it clear. So Germany should be offered a de facto political alliance over most Protestant and Catholic states located within Central and Eastern Europe. A certain city could be given back to Germany, and they're looking for a Moscow-Berlin access. So they're looking to have a powerful German state. You understand? A powerful German state. Germany assumes France. France becomes stronger. The United Kingdom's cut off of Europe, right? That makes Russia. Oh, Finland is given to Russia. Estonia is given to Germany. Basically. And then of course they have Middle East and Central Asia. They say Iran as a key ally. They talk about the Moscow-Tehran axis, so on and so forth. But long story short, they're looking to make alliances. They're looking to empower certain states in Germany states in Europe or in Asia, and create global alliances, so on and so forth, right? That right there is a geopolitical strategy. Okay? United States, same thing. They're like, hey, let's keep these people weak. Let's keep these, let's make sure that, United Kingdom doesn't get too ahead of France. Let's make sure France doesn't get too ahead of Germany. Germany doesn't get too ahead of Russia, so on and so forth, right? Now, France and Germany, and France and the United Kingdom has their own geopolitical strategy. You don't gotta read it, but you already know it. France is not trying to be outpaced by Germany and by England. England's not trying to be outpaced by France. Neither of them want a strong German nation, right? They both want to keep Germany weak, so they have their own geopolitical policy, right? But while these people are all competing against each other, vying for the top spot, vying to be ahead of the other person, what are you doing in Africa? So listen to me, they're getting stronger, right? They're getting faster, smarter, right? They're building more deadly weapons. They're technologizing, they're strategizing, they're organizing, right? And what are you doing in Africa? I'll wait. And you see the problem here? If you watched Japanese cartoons or whatever, or even like American cartoons. If you watch cartoons, a lot of times the protagonist would have a rival, and because the protagonist had a rival, they would, constantly try to outpace the other one, right? But the trouble is this: that if let's get away from this subject of the cartoons or whatever. But what I'm saying is that. All right, actually, let's go back to this Russia thing, right? Russia. This because there was one that was pretty interesting. It was Ukraine. Okay, so Ukraine. So Russia says Ukraine should be annexed by Russia because Ukraine as a state has no geopolitical meaning, no particular cultural import or universal significance, no geographic uniqueness, no ethnic exclusiveness. Its certain territorial ambitions represents an enormous danger for all of Eurasia, and without resolving the Ukrainian problem, it is in general senseless to speak about continental politics. Ukraine should not be allowed to remain independent unless it is cordon sanitaire, which would be inadmissible, right? I don't even care to look up cordon sanitaire. Who cares, right? The point being, though, is that you see what they do with these small nations, these weak nations, right? They say, look, we're just going to annex it. We're just going to absorb it. We're just going to give it away, right? Now, Ukraine probably is a weak nation. Who knows, right? But what do you think these nations in Africa are? How do you think these white boys are going to look at these nations in Africa? Do you honestly think that they look at these nations on par with themselves? That they're looking to propose some sort of alliance with these nations that don't even have functional governments, that don't even have military budgets, don't even have an armed force. That they're just saying, you know what, we're gonna have a little strategy with them. We're gonna give them this, we're gonna give them that. We're gonna stay away from them. If they have this policy, they have a fundamental resource that everybody's looking to have for their military. Let's buy it from them, fair use. Yada yada. No. First off, there's a historic animosity that white people have for black people, of course, right? But even not saying that, you just being a weak nation says it all. Okay, says it all. This white boy want resources and you're weak. France and United Kingdom are trying to outpace each other. You get what I'm saying? And who's Nigeria competing with? And you don't gotta be competing. You don't want to be competing. But who's Nigeria even cooperating with? You understand? I read this one sister. I really adore her on Twitter. And she's always complaining about the African dictators and all that, yada yada. And the thing is that that's fine. That's fine. She's an amazing woman, right? But all the same, there is a problem with our people if that's our like she's like on the forefront. And yet so I'm saying that 99% of us are behind her. Okay? That's a problem. You know, because I can't even tell you how many of these white boys are reading this book. Because again, it's a Wikipedia article, right? Which means that, you know, aside from the author who wrote it, you know, other people read it. Matter of fact, I'm looking at this this Wikipedia page. 12 references. You know, that means you understand. That means it's spread out. A lot of people, like enough people, read it or wanted to read it or cited it. Matter of fact, one of this right here, George Washington University has it. You know, foreign policy. Hoover Institution was discussing it, so that's a whole institution discussing it. You know, Cambridge University has a you know reference there. Narasco Publishing. You know, apparently somebody wrote a book uncovering Russia. You know, the excerpt is a civil society without civility. You know, another thing right here, news.com, you know, in Australia, some 1990s manifesto outlining Russia's plan is starting to come true. You know, so basically there's some conversation around it. You know, this is geopolitical strategy, right? What do we have? What is Nigeria's geopolitical strategy? What is the Ankobia geopolitical strategy? You understand? If these are weak nations, first off, you keep trying to go after these big nations. You're like, you know what, we you know, yada yada. Forget that. Go back to the numbers. Nigerian army is 200,000 people. You know, if you were to go into, like, what I need to know is, where in Africa am I going to go and I'm going to see a university or a school system where we're turning out people who are thinking ideologically clearly, thinking like Ankobia. And what are you doing to get that done? What are you doing to get that done? Now, the first thing you can do, as you know, is get this book in your hands. You listen to me. Listen to this break.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
When will African people have basic rights? When will we be protected? When will our cost of living be eliminated? When will our cultures be preserved? We need a new leadership, one that has studied the problems and learned the solutions. The Pro-Black Compendium is the book to start off that leadership. Quotations, essays, poems, stories, codes of conduct, curricula, principles, relationship advice, marketing tips, group economics, games, book clubs, movie nights, chronologies, civilizations, wars, warriors, authors, songs, conflict resolution. The list goes on. There is no book more necessary for starting our people on the path to African redemption.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
So the question is this, right? So the big question is this. I give you all this context, right? So the question is this: can Africa's weaknesses be Ankobia's strengths? So I was gonna say Pan-African strengths, but you know, I'm tired of catering to the people who ain't reading. You gotta read the book. You gotta understand what an Ankobia is. Okay? and I shouldn't have to keep trying to explain it to you. You're supposed to know what an Ankobia is so we can move forward. Because we're too backward right now. Question is, what are we going to do about the situation where we have 8 million black people in Lagos? You understand? Our people are on the pathway to destruction. And I'm being literal. Okay? Right now, first off, these white boys are poisoning their own water. Their own clean water. They're poisoning their own, they're poisoning and draining their own clean water. Okay? And when they run out, they're going to take yours. You understand? You're not going to play around with it. It's not a game. Right now, you have the largest, you have a huge population growth. Okay? You're finna have a huge young adult and children's population. And they and for some reason, you're not working towards giving them any sort of skills. There's a brain drain going on in Africa. If you smart, if you could, you know, count, and you smart or whatever, you trying to get recruited by America or Russia or China. You understand? That's a problem. That's a problem. We have mathematical geniuses, you know, that could go to Africa, set up a school, right, and produce the best math and science minds in the world. You know, because we have the best material and we have the best, and we have enough skill to do that. And if you had a school system that was turning out the best minds, and it also giving a good fundamental cultural education. And by cultural, I don't mean, you know, what I mean is, or ideological education, let's say that. Giving a good fundamental ideological education on top of good math, good science, good skills, right? You're set. You understand? You have people who can produce things. And again, remember what I told you about the Nigerian budget, right? Now you have to understand that budget is tiny in reality for that huge number of people. But you know, if and hopefully, you know, and unfortunately, you know, some of these people are, you know, some of the people in government are corrupt. But the point, but again, the cost of living is a little lower. So, you know, 20,000 USD, which is not much in America, but might be, you know, significant in Nigeria. Either way, right? You take that and you or more, obviously. But what I'm saying is that that's affordable from the government, for the government. You understand what I'm telling you? That's affordable to the government. You put a program that's actually functional, that's turning out good citizens, good pan-Africanists, good nationalists, good Ankobia. Smart, intelligent, skillful, talented, building their own cars, building their own shoes, building this, so on and so forth. You put out that, right? And you could transform Africa. That could be your geopolitical strategy, right? And of course, there could be another geopolitical strategy. We don't have to face on one because, again, that's small. How small that military is. Africa faces coups all the time. You understand that? Because sometimes you read in African history and it's like, oh, this person came in through a coup, and they've been in there since. Why is that? Because they're weak. How many coups do you know about in America? How many coups do you know about in Russia? And when were they? In Africa, it's almost normal. But of course, that tells you another thing. Now, and another thing that you can also understand is that if you radicalize the population with such a small military opposition, you could have a freaking coup if you wanted. You understand? You could have a coup if you wanted. But it'd be an Ankobia coup. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of you won't like this. Because we're going to talk real. We're going to be real. What is it that we are trying to accomplish? You had 8 million. You can have a city as big as New York City in the hands of black people. You see how good Harlem was. Harlem had its Marcus Garvey. You understand? Harlem had its Carlos Cooks. You understand? You had Harlem. And Harlem is just a fraction of New York City. Not even a significant fraction. Now you talking about Lagos could be a freaking Harlem. And remember, Harlem, some people would say, unfortunately, for lack of a better term, they would say a black Mecca of the world. Of the world. A little city. A little part of a city. About a few blocks was the black, quote unquote, Mecca of the world. Now, if you had Lagos as the black Mecca of the world, if Africans from Kenya and the Congo, I see y'all, said, you know what, we gotta stop by Lagos and get the latest news, or hear the latest voices, hear the latest speakers, you know, or get the latest cars, get the latest socks, whatever, right? Or join the latest industry. If you dealing with that's the difference. But we're not even doing that. We're gonna have a huge young population that's probably going to be unemployed, particularly unemployed by black folk, and that's a dang shame, because you know what happens when they're unemployed, right? They're gonna go hungry. You know what happens when they go hungry, right? You understand what I'm saying to you? Ticking time bomb. Ticking time bomb. A lot of you want to talk about, oh yeah, the black population is just growing, white population is disappearing. Don't even matter. Cause you know about child soldiers. I don't need to tell you about that. I don't need to tell you about child soldiers and the conditions that they in. I don't need to tell you about the hood and the ghetto. I don't need to tell you about that. You already know all that. But what do you think happened to those kids? And again, you can read that in the Pro-Black Compendium, how you can have that situation, how the hood comes about, housing experiments, projects. You know, we got to engage in city planning. If we engage in city planning in Lagos, we had a school system with discipline, with economic opportunities afterwards. Forget it. Forget it. You know. And again, you know, I didn't even finish writing out, you know, different responses, because again, I don't think that, because my problem is this: if you just bought this book, I wouldn't have to explain this stuff to you, and then give away the secrets, or give away the thinking. I wouldn't have to give it away. You would have just read it, you would have understood it, you would have put it into practice, we would have been free, or you would have been on the path to freedom. But instead, you want to be like, well, Oni, sell me this book. Sell me this book. I mean, I hear it's good. Sell me this book. And then you're like, okay, all right, last time you sold me this book, but you know what? I'm still not completely sold. You're wasting both of our times. But let's say we talk about politics, right? Like, usually I try to separate the solutions: political, economical, cultural, and I would say ethical. I only wrote political and economical right now. Okay, I don't need to write them all out. Right? Maybe in the next book, and again, I'm not feeling the motivation to write this next book. I'm not feeling the motivation. I'm seeing that some people are like, hey, you know what, Oni, I don't want to buy a book from you. I don't. And if I feel like you don't want to buy it, I already know it. I already know it. So why am I writing it? If you don't want it, you got to tell me you want it. You know, I got a Cash App. You're supposed to send me money when you have it and say, you know what, brother, this is just for you. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. But you don't. You say, you know what, I might listen to him next week. Okay, so I might do one next week. Or I might write this book, maybe. You know what I'm saying? This white boy, you know, a lot of y'all like, you know, why this white boy don't kill Oni? Because he's probably thinking to himself, ain't nobody want to listen to Oni anyway. I see the views Oni's getting. They'd rather listen to Tariq Nasheed and complain about him. He talking about colorism. Oh man, Tariq Nasheed talking about colorism. He woke. He woke. Oh no. That's what you rather do. You rather hear this one person talking about, oh, black man ain't shit. Oh man, she woke. She gets it. Or she's defending black men. Oh man, she's defending us. Great. Meanwhile, again, like I said, Russia's talking about nations. Whole nations. Whole nations of people. You talking about, well, I think this actress would have been better if she was darker. And what are you fucking, that's a fucking, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, Ochanda, I'll put it in the bucket, right? Anyway, so political strategies, like, you could go about with also politics, right? Now, one of the parts about radicalizing a group of Africans, like turning out students with a radical philosophy, teaching them to radicalize their parents and so on and so forth, is that way how political parties work, right, is that you can, like I said, everybody else has their own policy, their own goals, right? So they go to the Democrats and they say, look here, Democrats, you open those borders up, or you let us come inside of these borders, right? We'll vote for you, right? Or in the other way, you know, you have, you know, the Arabs and so on and so forth. You try to get rid of this Muslim ban and we'll, you know, yada yada, right? That's the advocacy part. And the thing is that if the people are of a certain political influence, right? Especially if it's a quote unquote democratic system, and let's face it, let's say if the vote is authentic or even inauthentic, it don't matter. If enough people are of this mentality that, yeah, we can, we need to have open, let's say we need to open our borders to other African nations, or we need to open our trade with other African nations, or we need to exclude foreigners, all that. If that's enough, then even the political leaders would go along with that. And if they don't, there's trouble. You understand? If enough people are radicalized, then there's trouble for even them. That right there is one strategy, right? If you want to go to the economical thing, though, right? You can go build these schools, build these academies, build these so on and so forth, right? And then you create industries, right? And everyone in Africa is saying, hey, look, these are where the good paying jobs are. They're in Lagos. The good paying jobs are in Lagos. Okay? But in Lagos, they're promoting our ancestry, i.e., for instance, there could be a shoe factory that's providing shoes for all the people in Africa, right? But they have themes of RBG, Garveyism, Garvey, or even Nkrumah. I mean, you don't want to put, I mean, I don't know if you want to put Nkrumah, but, you know, because of his, you know, latter days philandering outside of the race, right? Which is just don't do that. You get what I'm saying? But all the same, what I'm saying is that you have that, your themes, so on and so forth. That right there is another thing, right? Or you have filmmaking. You know, Nigeria already, let's admit it, does have Nollywood, right? But then you have films that are based off of revolutionary themes, and they're hiring actors, good paying jobs, good paying actors. You get beautiful women, beautiful men, so on and so forth, from all over Africa coming together to try to be inside of that film industry. You know, kind of like what, if I remember correctly, California is doing with Hollywood, right? Or you could have architecture, jobs in rebuilding buildings that fit our style, whatever it is, right? And of course, you could have discounts for African people. You know, you could have a school that works on building cars. You know, there was a video of this dude who, I guess he went to a junkyard and put stuff together to make his own car, right? You don't need to go to a junkyard to make a car, but the point is that if you give enough young people, if you give people an opportunity to build cars, and again, remember this: the state has a budget. The cities have budgets. Okay, you can get a piece of that city and state budget. That's the whole point. You don't understand politics. Otherwise, the point is that you get contracts from the city, from the state. You say, hey, look, Nigeria, we can build a tank for you, whatever it is, right? And the thing is that the corruption part is where you don't really fulfill anything worthwhile to the general public. But otherwise, if you are providing if you're making a product or service for the general public, you can get state funds for that. You can even have jobs. You can even advertise all over Africa jobs for freaking building the roads, repaving the roads, you know, or making railroads, whatever it is. You can give that economic opportunity to our people. Give it some sort of, make sure that there's a theme of African collectiveness, African working together, Africa, pan-Africanism, so on and so forth, whatever it is, you can do that. Okay? And that could be your geopolitical strategy, or a geopolitical strategy. And again, I'm not going to give you the answer. Because I know, unfortunately, a lot of you will want to give this to white boys. You want to say, hey Billy, I thought you said no nigger is smart. What about this one right here? No, don't do that. Stop giving these white boys. Leave the white boy out of it. Okay, leave him out of it. But on that note, what I'm saying, but let's be real, and this is the thing that you don't want to hear. Let's be real. You can even have a geopolitical strategy of taking over these African nations from a certain point. Say, hey, look, you know what? We're gonna get some government in Nigeria. Then we're going to combine. We're just gonna combine, whether they want it or not. We're gonna combine, and we're gonna be easy on our people. We're gonna be easy. Because I put in the book Pianke, Story of Pianke. Let's see what page that is. All right. Let's see what page this is. Pianke, page 140. Right. I put inside of it where he was saying, look, let's see. He's a Kenesu king, liberated Kumat and Kumat's request. At Kumat's request, right? And they fought solely to protect our ancient ways. And look, he marched through Kemet, right? But he would offer the most favorable terms of peace to avoid fighting, only attacking if those terms are rejected, right? So we can say, look, hey, you know what? We want this African nation. It doesn't got to be in Nigeria. Again, because remember, all these militaries are weak. I'm gonna actually look up quickly the size of the Ghana armed forces, right? The size of the Ghana armed forces, right? Oh, geez, sorry. So 13,500 active personnel. All right, 13,500 active personnel. Right, that's tiny. Okay, that's tiny. You know what I'm saying? You understand that? Let's look at another nation. Like for instance, Togo. Because that's where this nicest is from. She's from Togo. Okay, the Togolese armed forces, right? And remember, she's talking about the let's see. I don't want to waste you guys' time. I could have looked this up before, but in essence, we gotta understand that because these nations aren't even strong, right? That's another reality. That you gotta face facts as well as fancies. Someone can take these nations over. And if you're going to take these nations over to unite them under favorable terms, and the reality is just that you don't have to fight everybody. You just gotta stop the fighting. You understand what I'm saying to you? You do that, you combine enough of these nations, right? Or recombine these nations, right? And I know some of you don't want to hear this. Some of you are like, hey, you know what? That sounds a lot like, yeah, it does, obviously. You're dealing with a world where we have a predator. And the thing is this, that if you're uniting these nations, you're just creating a bigger state budget. You're creating a bigger military force. You're creating more central planning. Okay? You're doing that in order that you can have a bigger dominance in this world. So that no one's pushing you around it. So that when they want your resources, if you want to even give it to them, they have to pay for it at a reasonable price, at a price that you choose. You understand? That's a difference. That's a difference. Now some of you are like, I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather be a weak nation that gets kicked around and, you know, pushed around, and at least I have my dignity. Where? Where? And understand that it all comes back. It comes back everywhere. The black woman in Brazil. There's a black woman in Brazil right now getting raped because you don't want to combine, because you don't want pan-Africanism. She's getting raped right now just because of you. You don't want pan-Africanism. Like I said, you can have favorable terms because we're African people. We're African people. We understand that. Look, we know how to fight. You come with a force 500,000 strong, right? You go to this, you know, Ghanaian military and you say, hey, look, you guys can, you know, we're just gonna take out the corruption out of your government. We're gonna create, you know, schools, you know, school system that's on the soul that's better. We're gonna, you know, teach the farmers, you know, better. We're gonna give farmers better equipment to, you know, produce, you know, foods. And we might tell you, we might say what kind of foods we would like you to produce. Maybe it's just gonna be subsistence food. Maybe it's gonna be cash crops. Most likely it's gonna be subsistence. But maybe if it is cash crops, you're gonna be heavily compensated, and you're not gonna have to worry about much, you know. Or if you rather go to the city, we have cities for you. We have so on and so forth. We're working for you. You know, you can keep your language. We want you to keep your language. You understand? We want you to keep your customs. You know, if you want to do some self-governance, we want that too. But we don't want no corruption. And we want some of your young men to come, this military force, keep it strong. Keep our walls, keep our borders strong. You know, keep our trade strong. We want some of your, you know, brilliant minds to come to our universities. Teach more, research more, build more, develop more. You know, we want to be a superpower. And all it takes is that, you know, this, you know, the military force that you have drop its weapons. And we don't want to kill our own people. Drop its weapons and just, you know, let's hug it out. Let's hug it out. And that 500,000 strong force, you know, goes up to 1 million strong. You understand? Goes up to 2 million strong. Now again, 2 million is a big number. But it's not a big number for Africa. You have to understand that, again, United States is like a population roughly 350 million. I didn't look it up. I don't care. Right? Africa, as a continent, has a population of 1.2 billion. Right? Some people say that, you know, it may become 2 billion soon, or sooner than later. Right? 1.2 billion population, right? I'm looking at GDP per capita. No, they're saying it's I mean, it's not so on and so forth. You can't really. Okay, it's let's say $2,000 a person, right? Which is, you know, apparently small, right? But 2,000 times 1.2 billion is about, let's just roughly estimate it, right? We're gonna say $2.4 trillion, right? And that is in an underdeveloped capacity. So $2.4 trillion in an undeveloped capacity. Now we are intending on going to Africa and developing it, right? So already, if we're looking at let's say if we're looking at the United Snakes, let's say its overall GDP. I mean, well, you get the picture. You get the picture. Let's see. You get the picture. Remember, the United States, the Snakes again, is one of the most like developed nations. So its total GDP is 19 trillion. So it's still, ways ahead of even the underdeveloped Africa. It's still a ways ahead in that regard. But if we go about the business of developing Africa, and it's a whole different story. A whole different story, a whole different narrative. You then have a sizable military. You then have a sizable economy. You then have central planning where, we're dealing with our own food. We're protecting our own water. We're protecting our people. But that's going to require a geopolitical strategy. And again, I said the black man can't spell the word geopolitics. I don't talk about these individual deaths that black folk go through because it don't got nothing to do with geopolitics. Even if you told me Oni died, like me, I died, right? That's not. We got to deal with geopolitics. We got to deal with the bigger, larger picture, the picture of nations and what nations do. We got to deal with, let's say, Nigeria says, look, we're not going to do none of that stuff, right? We got to deal with getting rid of that leadership. We got to deal with getting rid of that leadership. And we got to deal with getting with the leadership that says, yeah, we're going to do that stuff. Like, for instance, if Azania tells you, if Malema says, hey, you know what? We need to do that. We need to go about with Azania getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what we need to do. We need to expand the African states that have a pan-African nationalist agenda. Okay? We gotta be about that. And what that means, what that would look like, what that means and what that would look like, involves a lot of planning on our parts. But what I'm saying is that we're gonna need to do some stuff about these cities in Africa. We're gonna do some things about these nations in Africa. And we gotta, and I can't say it right here because that's stupid. Because this white boy's listening, and you're sending it to the white boy, and you making sure this white boy's listening. You say, hey, look, jump to a minute and so on and so forth seconds. No, jump to an hour and so many minutes. Jump to there and hear what this brother's saying, man. Yeah, white, yeah, Billy. Yeah, he said it. He said it. You need to stop giving this white boy stuff. And the thing is that even me being on YouTube, I'm technically giving this white boy stuff. But enough of that. All right. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. The comments are really what I want. Okay, I really want those comments. Get this book purchased. I'm looking at the metrics. I'm looking at how this book is going. Critique me on even how I'm selling this book. Critique me on my marketing. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I'm doing right. I recently changed the description for the Pro-Black Compendium, and it seems like some people liked it more than the former one. Let me know what, just talk to me. Talk black to me. All right? I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you, but until then, thank you for listening. Thank you so much. Thank you for buying the books, because a lot more people bought the book this time. Thank you for writing reviews. Some of y'all wrote reviews, loving them. Really appreciate that too. And just continue to share, continue to talk about it, continue to show me that you're buying the book. Show me show me the, reblog, retweet, so on and so forth. Special shout out to those of you who Got the Carlos A. Cook's book. That's a really good book too. And I appreciate that. Apparently White Boy's trying to sell it for $7,000 now. You know? So thank you so much. And you know, until next time, you know, peace, ashe, and so on and so forth. But again, you know, we're talking about, you know, Africa's weaknesses. Let's face it. And what we as Ankobia, like what our strengths are going to be. So definitely share this one. Hope you enjoyed it. I did it in one run. No editing. But hope you liked it. Thank you so much, Ashe. Hotep.
Thank you for listening. I invite you to join hands with your brothers and sisters as we recite the African affirmation together. It's a call and response, so follow my lead. We are an African people, robbed from our homeland, robbed of our names, our languages, our cultures, our religions, our womanhood, our manhood, our sisterhood, our brotherhood, our motherhood, our fatherhood, our selfhood, our nationhood, and our self-respect. But we shall rise, never to fall again. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.